like this happens where it's like, y'all don't.
But I'm gonna tell you, I remember the feeling, and you felt this sense of this is going downhill.
Yeah.
And when watching the game, I felt incredibly bad for Bri because of all the drama around it. And I'm sorry, I don't know if the clips are in here, but watching, Hope's face on the bench and knowing the type of atmosphere that created on the bench and everything, and they kept panning to her, and just you could feel it from here, from the US, and you just felt like it was just like, this isn't going to go well, because you could feel the energy from the team going, like, it was like almost, it's like the two splintered groups, like, see, I told you so type of thing, instead of, okay, guys, we got to squash everything and we got to win this game. Let's all come together. So go ahead.
We can, I told you so later, but right now. Yeah, so I get that it was in some sense great TV, because it was, again, one of the more dramatic things within the national team, goes for all the wrong reasons. However, like you're saying, it was kind of feeding in the wrong direction. It just kept going. So they're down 1-0. The U.S. ended up losing this game 4-0, but the second goal, again, this is out of order here. The second goal, I don't think there's a deflection here, but basically we've got some lateral movement from the top of the 18. You've got a little bit of a runner here. It might get tapped, I don't know, but you can tell she gets a palm on it. But I think all the movement here, and I'll play it in real time here because
just play it in real time.
Yeah, it's something that it's a bit of a soft goal. I think we can all look at that and say that. I think the first goal is kind of like a bit comical for me, for Solo to be like, why would have saved it? It's like, that's not like a shot. That's like a thing.
It's an own goal deflection.
Yeah.
I mean, the argument Solo can make is that we would have been on the same page and the communication would have been, but you don't know. Here, I think that, is that Piercy? I think that, is that Rampone?
Maybe, I can't tell.
I think, it looks like it. I think that their far post is covered. I think she's only going near post, and I think that Bri knows she should make the save. Now, if Solo wants to say she would have made the save, look, you can always say that, but then there could have been other saves that Bri made that you wouldn't have made, so you don't know, right? But I think the biggest thing that comes back to this is the atmosphere around the team. It was a head down, losing atmosphere, and you helped create that. So I'm sorry, but that's just as dysfunctional as bad saves. Yep. So, it's just as toxic. So it's more toxic. So I'm sorry. I just don't agree with it. So yes, I think that this is by far, and I'm sure Bri will tell you, not the greatest game she's ever had in her life.
Well, no, she's been pretty open about that. But I think this is a perfect game to help people zoom out a bit, because we can look at the goal and actually looking at the replay again. I think she actually does get deflected, but you look exclusively at just the moments on the field, you might come to some conclusion, but when you zoom out any amount, even just a little bit, and you think about well, this was happening, and the first goal was this, but also the team stuff, and then this is that, these sort of moments start to make a lot more sense. Mm-hmm. And it starts to oh, actually.
You look at and you say, they're not playing as a team defensively. They're disjointed defensively. Even on the last goal, you had pressure cover. You didn't really have pressure cover balanced properly. I think that, I think there should have been better pressure on the ball. It's not a difficult shot from the top of the box. Let her have that shot 99% of the time. Bri has that save. But at the second time, if that was Piercy, I'm not sure who that was, but why are you so deep? So you even allow that runner to kind of screen Bri and everything. Why is that run so deep in the box? So we can pick apart the defense here as well. But I think that comes down to the team just not being together, playing. So just let them play. Else we're going to be here for hours. This is, I think, in today's game, I think Bri's in no man's land in this. I think she comes out, she has to set. Okay, this goes back to old school. Don't keep coming, because you're going to get the ball passed by you as well. She comes out, she makes herself big, but your distance from the player is so much right now that the goal is too big behind you, and she just tucks it in away. Bri's got to close space faster, so she's at about 3 yards closer to the player. She's too far here. right? So her timing coming off her line on this is way too slow and everything. Again, disjointed. Where's the defense?
Yeah.
Where's the organization? So
I'd have to go through the full game, which is actually on YouTube, but that's a very odd setup here. Like, why is she there with the ball? What has happened here? So absolutely, I think the fourth goal, it's probably like maybe not only the goal of century goal ever. I don't know. This is a wild goal to see from Marta. Who else? But she embarrasses our entire team here. And again, it's just kind of a mess. It kind of goes through Scurry a bit, but also it's 3-0. They're down a person. The game's kind of winding down.
Everybody's getting beat here.
Everyone's going to roll. I mean, like from an objective standpoint, that's an awesome goal. I think
it is, but you've got no cover and balance on Marta. She does the flick one. It's a gorgeous goal by Marta, but she just destroyed our defense. And then Bry, heels back, waits not forward. She's on her heels. She gets beat. The ball goes under her. So it's just, I'm sure nobody wants to talk about it because everybody wants to forget it. I want to forget it.
Well, yeah. And I think this game is actually a great example to completely put the technique and tactics, not maybe all the way off to the side, but pretty far off the side, and really look at the real core of the problem here. What is that seed? It's not, she didn't find her set position. That is not the issue here. There are things way more important here.
And I think you see here and that's why I said watching that game, I remember the feeling of watching that game and knowing all the drama that was going on and just watching it was the energy, and it was the team was splintered and disjointed and it wasn't together. And that to me is more apparent. And that's what fed into the defense out of position to Bry letting up soft goals and for Bry's talent and, and Marta having a heyday like that. It was the perfect storm in a sense.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. It's not just one thing that's gone wrong. It's a lot. So, after the game, which is the thing I've paused you on twice now, but we'll get to. So I've got the full quote here, or most of the quote here, at least the start of it. Someone doing their job asked Solo, what they thought of the decision, and she says it was a wrong decision, and I think anybody that knows anything about the game knows that. There's no doubt in my mind I would have made those saves, and the fact of the matter is that it's not 2004 anymore. The last things here, I'll let you roll on this, but the last things here moving forward is Solo was removed from the team after, in the documentary, she said how they took the whole team and put them in a circle and they all sat down and they just went around the circle or whoever wanted to talk and just list out all the awful things that they did not like about Solo. I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to hear from the other side because Scurry does not mention this in the book directly. She does mention a couple points of some dialogue, but even that was kind of summed up with something of someone saying, how the F could you have done that, and storming out of the room. There's clearly both sides are in agreement that people are upset, and even Solo has come out afterwards pretty immediately saying that she wasn't trying to target Scurry. I don't know how you couldn't feel that is at least somewhat targeted. And I think she kind of knows that, but it sounds like her frustration had boiled to such a high level that she's just kind of scorched earth, whatever, I'm going to say what I want and roll over. Mm-hmm. And then now, things are pushing back against her. So she gets removed from the team. She's not with them for the third place game. She doesn't travel home with the team. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, I mean, like I said, not much comes out about that. I think the main things, one, again, as the book, but also when she was suspended, again, not doing a total breakdown of Solo as a person, but when she was suspended, Abby Wambach made a comment of how this is a lifetime achievement award. So I guess I'm curious on your end of how do you feel, what should have happened? I think we're all in agreement.
I'll tell you exactly what should have happened. Yeah. Number one, Solo should have never been allowed to speak to anybody after that game. And whether, I don't care if Aaron Heifetz media was like, we want, no. You bring that team into the locker room, you say, look, we're all upset about this. we all are, on different pages about this. Nobody's talking to the media except our captains. That's it. All you got to do is say no, right? Because obviously she's fired up. So whether she was in the step and repeat, she was right there. So she got brought out there. I know how it works. Aaron Heifetz was like, the media wants to talk to you. The answer's no. Not right now. You could talk to her tomorrow or something like that. Bring your team together, captains, talk to them, say nobody's talking to the press right now because we're all so pissed off. We're all so volatile against each other. The captains will go out and do the media, and they'll talk to them, say, we're upset. We need to come together as a team, refocus so we can win the third place and stuff like that. She should have never been allowed to, in my opinion, right? And on top of that, what you said was so not on par for this crest and these 4 stars on my hat whatsoever. And it doesn't represent the shoulders that you stood on to be where you are. And that is how I felt about it. That is how my other teammates that we talked to, when it happened, felt about it. We're like, not in our house, not on our time. We are a team. We stand united even in defeat. Have some pride and realize that it's not about you. It's we, not me.
Well, let me ask you this.
And that was disrespectful to everything we played for. So I'm sorry, and you could come at me, and I've made my mistakes and stuff like that, but I've always been a teammate.
Well, I think this is one thing. Again, I think outside looking in, people can really miss the importance of like the collective whole, and that was something Scurry made very, very clear in her book. And I think just in general, you talk to anyone with the national team, a high priority on the collective whole. Whereas on the men's side, not that that's not important, but like it's not anywhere near the same level. It's totally different. All right, welcome back to Gloves Off. Normally, I'm joined with Saskia Webber, who is unfortunately she can't make it this week. But I've managed to find a wonderful replacement here for this week. I've done some digging personally, and it kind of dawned on me as Saskia and I have been doing the show, and we've been covering a lot of goalkeeping and the women's game, and a lot of it's been very present-minded, and we've gone back in time a little bit here and there. But I was trying to think back, like, okay, well, there's a first goalkeeper, and I don't know who the first ever goalkeeper was in the women's game, but certainly I could track down the first All-American goalkeeper. So today we have Lori Katz with us, who you'll need to correct me a little bit. When you think of your alum status, you are at 2 different schools. Where is your heart, or where is your mind when you think of, hey, this is kind of my school that I played at?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's both. I was made All-American when I was at Lewis and Clark College in Portland. So that's where I got that award, but I was all conference for the 4 years, which included Lewis and Clark and University of Oregon in Eugene. So, I think my time at the U of O was better in terms of soccer, just because the team was great. So
Okay, that's fair. Okay, I opened up with the first question asking you which is your favorite child. So that's probably not the fairest question to give you. But yeah, so Lori Katz is the first All-American goalkeeper in women's college soccer, which is 1980. Which at the time, the All-American word wasn't broken up from Division 1, 2, 3. It was just collectively all of NCAA soccer, which is kind of crazy to think about. I have a million questions, but I think the starting spot to kind of walk through this journey is to hear a little bit of the chapters before college. So you're growing up and something is happening in your world where it's prepping you for being a collegiate athlete. But in the 70s, I can't even begin to fathom, what that looked like. So walk me through a little bit of your childhood as far as the things that geared you for college soccer. What all led up until that moment as far as impacting you there?
Yeah. It's just so funny that, back in the 70s, it sounds so long ago. I grew up in Hawaii. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and there was no prepping. I just played as much soccer as I could. I played AYSO. I played on men's leagues. I was the first girl in Hawaii to play on a boys' high school soccer team because Title IX just kicked in. So I just played my heart out, and I always played on the field. I was a forward. And I just remember our keeper getting hurt one day, and I said, I'll go in. I think I was like 15.
Okay.
And they threw me in, and I remember I made my first save, and that was it. I wanted to be a keeper. I loved that thrill. And so, let's see, I was selected for what was it called back then? Oh my gosh. Like all state team to go play in Taipei, Taiwan for
Okay.
a women's football tournament.
Okay.
We didn't even call it football then in the United States, really. So I finally had a coach who was going to start helping me understand playing goalkeeper. Like that was the first time I ever had anyone tell me anything about it. I basically was just flying on my own, I just was athletic and limber and tall, and I could stop balls. So that was really my preparation in even getting into the goal. I mean, there just wasn't anything else there.
Yeah. What year was that tournament in Taiwan?
Oh, it must have been like 78.
Okay. Gotcha.
1978.
Okay. Yeah.
Around there.
What do you remember? I mean, so you obviously you have a bubble of, your friends, you're playing this and that, but you've gone to another country before you even got into college. What stood out to you from that tournament, or what differences, or were you amazed that were similar there?
Oh my gosh. The level of soccer it just blew my mind as just this little girl from Hawaii, and that was my only bubble. The only thing I watched was like Soccer Made in Germany back then. It was on TV, and that's where I would just, I would just be a fanatic about it. So going to Taiwan and watching all this international play from teams all over the world, Denmark, Sweden, China, Japan, Thailand, Germany, like it blew my mind. I just stayed in the stadium all day to watch games because the level of play was much bigger than what I saw in Hawaii. So it was a learning experience for sure. It was incredible. For me at that time, it was the best I'd ever seen women play.
Yeah. Now that I can imagine that the mind is kind of like just exploding of like, this is a possibility. Like this is, so even the level of play, but also like how international that moment is. Like that's awesome to hear. Well, how did y'all do in that tournament? Did y'all fare?
No, we did not. It was typhoon season. We were playing in,
oh no,
calf deep water. We pretty much got our butts spanked, but in those times you really learn a lot about what you're capable of and how much better you can be. So I mean, it didn't even really affect me that we really played like crap. I just was so amazed with what I was seeing and what I knew I could get to.
Yeah. Okay, well, now fast forward a couple of years, but before you get on campus with Lewis and Clark, what does the recruiting process look like? So did that impact the recruiting or did that not affect it? How do you go from, a young, small world in Hawaii to getting recruited?
Yeah. Well, I laughed at that question because there was no recruiting. Really my process was I filled out applications to go to college. I did not want to stay in Hawaii. I wanted to go to the mainland. That's what I called it. I wanted to be able to travel and wear big sweaters. I mean, that was my whole thing. And there was no recruiting. I remember filling out, like applications for scholarships to try and get some money to help me. And there wasn't nothing really on the West Coast where I wanted to be. I wanted to stay West Coast, closer to home. So it really was just, what colleges did I get into? Did they have a soccer program? Okay, I'm going to go, and I had been to Oregon with some friends. I thought it was beautiful. I loved the state. So, I got into Lewis and Clark and went there. They didn't even really have a good soccer program. I didn't even know that, though. I just thought, oh, my God, college soccer, this is going to be so exciting. Yeah. Can't wait to try out. I thought I was going to have to try out. Oh, no. We just showed up on the field. And the coach was the coach was a softball coach who they didn't have a soccer coach. So she did both.
Yeah. Did you, before you got to college, did you have a sense of the impact of Title IX? Because from people I've talked to from that era, it seems like the cultural shift of, hey, like this is an opportunity, didn't quite dawn on them until looking back of like, oh wow, that was an amazing opportunity that I had at the time. But growing up, it seemed like they didn't quite understand. Like, did you have a sense of like, wow, I could be a part of something like on the, those first years? Or was it more just like, okay, I'm going to go do this because this is in front of me?
Yeah, it didn't hit me like that. I mean, I realized it was there because I could try out for the boys' high school team and make the team. And
Okay.
at that age, I was just as good as the boys, really. They're still growing into their thing, and I'm a little more advanced that way. But I didn't realize the impact of what that really meant, So no, I just marched off to college basically and was just excited to play college soccer.
Yeah. Okay. Now I try to do a little digging into those first years of Lewis Clark, so you may have to connect some dots. I couldn't even find. Well, first off, let me ask you, your first season's 1980. Is that correct? That you were a freshman?
79, 80.
79. Okay.
Yeah.
So the 79. Did y'all played in the fall? Is that
Right?
or,
That's
okay,
right.
so 79. So that was the first year of the program. The 1980 team, I couldn't even find a record for how y'all did. So I think the 79 team, y'all had like 3 wins. It wasn't great. The 80 team, it was funny because it was on Lewis and Clark's on site. Like they didn't even have like results for 1980. So I don't know what happened that year.
Oh my God.
But it seemed like they got a little bit better over time. So, you get to this program. Talk to me a little bit as far as what was like the mindset going into like the season? Was it sort of like, hey, we know like these teams might be good, or these teams might, or there's a rivalry, or was it more of just like, okay, hey, we're here together, and it's the next step is here, the next game's here. How much purview did you have outside of your school?
Zero. Really. I mean, this team, I walk out to the field and it's a bunch of gals in Birkenstocks and socks on, and maybe some of them have played when they were younger. Some were softball players, some were basketball players. It was just this hodgepodge team with a coach who didn't really even know soccer rules very well. And so there was no like, pre-game amble about, all right, we watch the tapes for this team and watch these people. Nothing. There was no plan. It was just run drills, get in the van, drive to wherever we're playing, and play.
Okay. Now, so somewhere in between there and you winning the award in 19, so I guess there wasn't. I don't think there was any awards in 79 unless there was like a
all conference. It was just all conference. Yeah.
So 1980 is the first like national award. Somewhere in that process, you go from, knowing you have some skill, you've got to some level, but you don't have, from what I can hear, you don't have any real understanding on like the national scene of where you stack up. So can you tell me a bit of a transition moment where you realize like, hey, like I'm actually really pretty decent at this compared to not just Hawaii, but like the country? Was there a moment or a game where you're like, okay, actually, like, I think I can play on a little bit of a higher level?
Well, we were so bad. Even, you didn't see a record for the 1980, 81 year because it was just as bad as the first year. We were terrible. And so I think that's why I didn't even know that people were taking stats on, shots against, shots saved. I had no idea. I was just playing soccer. So when they told me I was All-American, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know it existed. I didn't know how they even could, how did they choose me? Did they have video of me? Like, how did they know this about me? There was no talk about it. I mean, my coach didn't talk about it. I don't think she even, or at that time it was a guy stepped into coach on the second year. He didn't even really know what it was. So it was brand new. At that moment, when I was told I was first team All-American, that's when I was like, what is that? And then I realized that means I'm the best keeper in the nation. That was the first light bulb ever that was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, and I could tell I was getting really good because there were so many shots on me. Like we were just so bad that I would, punt it out. It'd be back in my face in, 30 seconds. Yeah. So really there was no bigger awareness of where I stood nationally at all until that moment.
Looking back, how do you think, I guess I am curious how you think your name went from, starter of a goal, you get all conference, obviously, so that there's some recognition, but then you go from there to top of the stack. I mean, looking back, what do you think happened? I mean, how does that happen?
Like I said, I think they just saw that whoever was taking, stats back then, just the recording of the amount of shots on me and the amount of saves I made must have given me a good ranking because we really were not a good team. There was, the teams that we played during those seasons, the best team we played against was the University of Oregon. They were great, and they always, kicked our butt.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, and so you end up making a transfer to Oregon, which I don't know how much you know about the current state of transferring in the transfer portal, but I'm going to guess it was a little different. Walk me through, at some point, I assume you have a thought of, well, maybe I could go play somewhere else, to actually making that decision. How does that manifest in your head at the time?
Yeah. Well, what happened was when we played U of O in the 1980-81 year, they were just at us. And I was making all these saves left and right. I remember that game so vividly, even, how many years later, I don't want to say, but I remember that so vividly. And they just couldn't score. They couldn't score. They finally put one in. And then I don't even know how this happened, but we got a penalty kick on them. And my coach is yelling at me to go up and take the penalty kick after I've just been blasted with 400 shots. I'm exhausted. My legs are wobbly. And he's like, go take the shot. And I'm like, what? Oh, my God. So ran up there. I took the shot, put it in. We tied. They were so mad because they just tied to like a loser team. And then that's when they offered me to come play there. And they offered me a scholarship for the next year.
Was that on the spot after the game, or?
It was shortly after that. I'm trying to remember, I think I got a letter, shortly after that. I mean, I knew quite a few of the gals that played only because we play them frequently. So, it was a lot of good game and come play for us, and I didn't think anything of it because how do I go transfer to another school? I didn't even know. Back then there was no portal. There was no one to really even help you walk you through those steps. So when I got the offer for a scholarship to go play there, I was like, oh, heck yeah. I want to up my game. Yeah. So
timeline wise, did you get the offer to go to Oregon before the All-American Award?
Oh.
Because it sounds like that they would have been very, I guess, close at time.
Yeah, gosh, I don't remember, Bill. I don't remember. I think I got All-American after they offered me the offer.
I would imagine there'd be a bit of a delay for the award ceremony. So it sounds like your life changed pretty quickly over the course of a few months of, you've just finished your second season, you're playing well, you're feeling good. Oregon comes in with a scholarship. Do you mind if I ask on the scholarship amount? I mean, was it a full ride, or how did they?
I'm trying to remember. Well, here's what happened. At that same year, when I left Lewis and Clark, I packed all my stuff up, drove to Oregon, U of O, showed up at the, office to register, whatever. And they had dropped the U of O program from varsity to club.
Oh, wow.
Which meant there was no scholarship.
Oh.
No one said anything to me. I mean, I show up there and they're like, yeah, you don't have a scholarship.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember what the amount was. It might have just been, something to help with the tuition. I don't really even recall what that was. Yeah. But I was just in shock. I'm like, well, how can you do that? Yeah. I just kind of planned this whole thing to move to another college and financially, the whole thing got messed up. So the scholarship never happened, but I stayed. I mean, I just stayed. I wasn't going to go back to Lewis and Clark. It felt stupid. I stayed and played. I mean, I'm glad I did. We were, it was a much better team. We had a great coach. We went to nationals. We came in 5th in the nation, all that.
Yeah. Yeah. How did, at what point were you at Oregon where you kind of, it sounds like you came to the conclusion of, I'm glad I stayed, because I imagine you get there, very frustrating first day or first couple of days, but at some point you realize like, okay, like this is actually a good fit for me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I knew that even before I found out the scholarship was gone. I was excited to go play for Oregon because the level of their team versus where I was 100% night and day different. And they had a coach that knew what he was doing. The team really liked him. He was a great coach. He really helped with my goalkeeping. He was the first coach I had that really knew how to drill a keeper, and keep you involved in practice, and you're not just sitting there waiting for, a random shot. So I still was super excited to play at Oregon. I loved that whole experience.
Yeah. What was the coach's name?
Manfred. Last name it's a Swiss name, Sean, Tschan, Manfred Sean.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was great.
What about the goalkeeping investment coaching that you got, where you were like, oh, I hadn't thought about this, or oh, that is a better way? Was there any moment in that where you're like, oh, this kind of opens my mind of what to do here?
Yeah, I think all of it. It's a new team, so you're learning to play with a whole new set of skills, for one, learning how to communicate better, getting in massively good shape, daily doubles, which I didn't ever have.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that was, I remember just being exhausted, but being so excited. I loved the feeling of just being so tired after those daily doubles. It was phenomenal. I loved it. Yeah. And I knew I was getting better. I could tell my body was changing. I could tell everything about me, my diving skills, my, the level of saves I could make, understanding my position better. It all ramped up.
Did you have a sense of, I feel like sometimes when players transfer in, sometimes it can be a couple of different options, but sometimes they think, oh, I'm better than my teammates, or sometimes they think, oh, my teammates are way better than me, or sometimes they think, okay, I know we're on the same level, but I need to prove myself. How did you think of yourself compared to your teammates as far as talent-wise, and maybe even from a social setting of, okay, we're on the same level, or I need to do a little bit to catch up? How did that manifest in your head?
I think socially it was a great fit because all the women were fun. I think they were excited to have me. Yeah. I think, if I remember right, I think their previous goalkeeper got hurt, and so they didn't even really have someone who could step in. Yeah. And there was myself and another goalkeeper. She was, second string, but we worked out hard with each other. I felt like I just stepped into the world where I was supposed to be. I didn't feel like I had to prove myself to them, but I was proving myself to me, like, wow, this is where I wanted to get to. I wanted to have a good coach. I wanted to get better. I wanted to play for a good team. This is what I wanted when I first went to college. So I felt like ready to be with them.
Yeah.
It was a good fit.
No, that's awesome to hear. What the club sanctioning, was there any, I mean, obviously frustration right when you step in. How long did that linger out? I mean, those 2 years there, was the team disappointed? Were you disappointed? Or at the end of the day, did you feel like, hey, this is still a good level we're playing at? The whole varsity to club thing, how did that play out?
We still played the exact same teams in the league that we, were in as varsity. They just took away any kind of funding, basically. They just said, any funding you have as a varsity team, you no longer have it. So to travel to nationals, you go do all these fundraisers, you clean stadiums, you wash cars, you do bake sales, whatever we had to do. We all had to pitch in to get funding to go anywhere.
Yeah.
I think we still were able to use the college vans to go, on road trips for our games. That was
Okay.
about it.
Yeah.
The uniforms were old. I never had a keeper uniform in college. I
What did
always had
you?
my own sweats, my own gloves, my own, I
Yeah.
look at what these gals wear now. I'm like, oh, wow, that's awesome.
But I'm not like a glove head. There's some people who are really into like the smallest details of gloves. But tell me a little bit as far as your keeper gloves. What did you? Were there gardening gloves? Did you have real keeper gloves? What were they?
They were keeper gloves.
Okay.
They
Okay.
were
Good.
keeper gloves, but they were like, I don't even know what the ones now are made of. They would just kind of crumble after a season. They would just be crumbling, rubber.
Yeah.
They were keeper gloves. I mean, they actually were. I wasn't using gardening gloves, but
Good.
my
Good.
sweats were probably from like, secondhand store Salvation Army that I brought from Hawaii with me. I mean, they were just beat and shredded. And we played on AstroTurf at U of O. It was a turf field. So, everything was just shredded. There was nothing left, super thin, everything, no padding. It was rough.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it. Goodness. And where like turf fields are today. I think that's one of the big differences that people often forget when it comes to changes in the game. I mean, the equipment for sure, but like like turf then versus now. I mean, it's like you're probably playing on carpet to a certain extent. Like I don't
carpet with hard cement underneath it. So after daily doubles, you were sore.
You're feeling it. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
After Oregon, how did you go about your playing career? Were there intentions to play, or did you get your fill? Did you look at maybe some adult leagues? I mean, what was the mindset after finishing Oregon of like, okay, I still want to play, or I'm transitioning into a different stage of life?
No, I really thought as a kid growing up, and that I would go to college, I'd play college ball, and then I'd play pro. Like that was my goal. I didn't even have a clue there wasn't women's pro soccer after college. I thought there was something like, semi-pro something.
Yeah.
And there was not really anyone talking to you about it. It's not like I had a coach or a mentor or even a parent. My parents had no clue about soccer and what's involved with it. So there was nowhere really to go in terms of playing soccer after college. There may have been a few people that went internationally, but that wasn't even really a big thing then. I do remember some talk when the All-American team went to Europe. We took a trip, we went to Europe, we played over there. I do remember one of the coaches, asking me if I'd come play. I can't remember if it was Sweden or where, Denmark. I don't remember where we were, but nothing came of it. And I was just like, what, really? Is that a possibility? But nothing really came of that. Yeah. So I was heartbroken, Bill. I was so heartbroken when my college career was over. I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
I just have City League now. And, I coached, I did a lot of coaching, but there was no opportunity to play and get paid for it, to, have a career out of it. Nothing like that. I'm so envious of what's there now. And I know it takes pioneers to get us to that spot, but that would have been my ultimate dream.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine, because I think for younger people, they have a hard time understanding the communication like pathways pre-internet.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't go Google something. You couldn't obviously you could call someone, but even getting the information of who to call or who to talk to or how to find out. I mean, you're so locked to like newspaper or word of mouth. Like that's really it. So I think for some people are like, well, how did she not know? How could you not know? Like, even for me, I can go Google, oh, okay, the results of this is that. But if I didn't have that, if I can get setting up this call, it was through the internet,
there was no way to like research it, to talk to someone about it. You didn't even have a cell phone on you. You use pay phones and your coach's phone in their office. It was so not global. There was
Yeah.
There was nothing. I mean, if you found out about something, it was a letter that came to you, or someone made
Yeah.
a call to your coach and they said, hey, here's an opportunity to do a radio commercial. I mean, I did a couple goalkeeping commercials for somebody. I mean, it
Oh,
just, there was no reach like this.
yeah. Yeah. No, I can understand that. Tell me a little bit. This is news to me. Tell me about the All-American tour y'all did. When was that? What was that like?
That was, so 81. So the All-American team had first, second, third teams. So like you said, there wasn't, it was the whole nation. So I think that's why they had 3 different teams, so
Yeah.
first team was the top and then down. And they took us to Denmark, Denmark and Sweden. I think we even played in Germany one day. We took a ferry, but it was funny. I mean, they threw some coaches together. They threw some letters together. They said, you have to come up with this much money and send it here at this date. And here's the flight, get on these flights and meet in New York on this date.
Yeah.
And we're going to go play, 6 games overseas. I mean, that's how it was. And if you couldn't come up with the money, you didn't get to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was really fun. It was really fun. I mean, I remember again playing with such a higher skill level than the girls I was playing with at Lewis and Clark. That there just wasn't happening there. And so it was really fun for me to play with a good team. We trained over there. We had trainers, so we trained twice a day. We stayed with families. They put us up. You usually had, me and someone else would stay with the family. They'd feed you, drive you to practice, or you'd walk, or I don't know, someone had a car. And we just played a bunch of international games, which were really fun, really, really fun. But we stayed in, some places we were in, like, I don't know what these were, like locker rooms of elementary. No, there was no clubhouse to meet in. It was like, you think of it now, it seems so old fashioned, just barely starting out, finding places that we could go. The coach, the funding, the money that we sent for this kind of got used up on places where it shouldn't have. I mean, there was all kinds of foul play, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, even just the idea of sending money to a place where you can go, like, I think if I were to receive a letter today, and if I was a player, I would think, like, there's no way this is real. Like, you'd have to have this, like, I think even just the mindset that, like, it's hard for me to really put myself in your shoes at that moment of, it's an awesome thing you got to go do, but yeah, that is a very different time. But that's
very different time. Very different time. We toured. We got to go play a little bit, like Carlsberg, beer factory, and most of us were underage, but we're drinking anyway, and lots of dancing and having a good time for sure.
Do you still have anyone or a group of people from whether Lewis Clark, Oregon, or even that trip that you have conversations with now of, like, do you remember that crazy time where we went overseas or we did this? Because I guess some sense I'm getting from hearing the story is almost like it kind of felt like a different world of, like, wow, we got to go do this thing that even now it's like that's not a thing that happens. Like, the All-Americans don't go do a tour. Like, that doesn't happen now.
Right.
How do you talk about people that you played with at the time, looking back on that?
Yeah, there's still some friends that I'm in touch with, not consistently, but when we do get in touch, there's always reminiscing of that. Even like just the U of O alumni teams. If we come back and go to a game together and watch a game, and then have a potluck or whatever, there's a lot of reminiscing about that. And some things you don't even remember, and someone tells you did. Like, what? I did do that? Are you sure? So there's still a handful of people that I stay in touch with from, my college days, my soccer days.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You graduate in 82, 83?
83.
83. The national team sparks up in 85. Was that on your radar at all? Did you have any conversations? How did that
Yeah.
period go?
Yeah, because I was living in Colorado for a while, playing for a state team there, a state select team. And we actually went to they had tryouts in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center.
Yeah.
So this state select team went there to try out. I tried out for the goalkeeper stuff. And it was very political then. It was a lot of whoever the coach was picking his keeper from, North Carolina or something. It didn't matter. Because I think I had a really good showing.
Yeah.
I was probably the tallest keeper there, the hit saved shots over the net more than anybody. Everyone who saw me said he should have been picked, but didn't, because the coach didn't really know me on the West Coast. He was an East Coast guy. So it felt very political then, but yeah, so no chance to play on that first national team.
Yeah. How long did you keep playing after college? I mean, it sounds.
Oh my gosh. Till, let's see, so almost 40 years I played soccer after college.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a while. Wait, sorry, you played until you were 40, or you played for 40 years after college?
Well, okay, 40 years total from the time I started. So I played, but I did play till I was like 45. So
Wow.
I played here in Eugene, Oregon, just city stuff. But it got pretty hacky, and there's no finesse. There's no finessing at city league sports. And I was watching people go with bad knee injuries, and I just wanted to get out so I could walk when as I got older. I'm like, I don't want busted knees and busted everything.
The last adult league I played in, I just had people continue to run into me, and I just thought, I was like, I don't even really care if we win or lose. I mean, it'd be great if we did, but the main objective is to walk out of here. Like, I don't like,
Exactly.
I don't want to be on a crutch when I'm getting out of here. Like, I'm like, this is not the level I'm playing at. Did you have either with like the kind of the combine in Colorado, or even the city league stuff? Did you ever have any sort of sense of like, do you know who I am? Like, I kind of wonder of like the, not so much, I guess, fame, but just like the understanding that, okay, well, you went All-American, you played well, you did well, and then to get into a spot of a national team training camp where you get overlooked, or you go into a city league and you're thinking like, can you guys not see this? Can you not see the level? Why do you not know about me? I mean, any sort of those frustrations with the post-college career?
Not so much about, do you know who I am? Because again, it just, there was no people to know who you were unless you're on, TV. So, and I still stayed in Oregon for quite a while. Oregon, Colorado, came back, moved to Seattle. So I stayed, around here. So I didn't feel like, don't you all know who I am? I was more frustrated with just the type of, the level of play that I was going to be in now.
Yeah.
Just, it just came down a few notches, and I knew it wasn't going anywhere, so mostly I think I started, really looking at coaching young players and giving back. I wanted to give back to these young girls who, most of them didn't have coaches, They didn't have women coaches. They had guys coaching or parents coaching who didn't know anything about soccer. And they just like read a book and were like, okay, take a lap. And, So I did a lot of coaching. I did a lot of reffing. I loved reffing as well.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. It's a common thread I feel like I hear from a lot of coaches, especially when it's coming to goalkeeping, of this like learned empathy from being kind of shunned, and sometimes not even on purpose, but of not really having a goalkeeper coach, and as a player just kind of waiting for the team to come join you, or to waiting to go. And so remembering, hey, this kind of sucks. Like, I really wish I had someone helping me or telling me what I did wrong. And so then when they get into that coaching spot, they actually get very excited of, hey, I can go help someone who is in that spot where they just want to know, they just want to get a little bit better. It doesn't really matter the heights that they get to. It's just that fulfillment of like, okay, I got to like undo some wrong that was kind of done to me. I feel like I've heard that a lot from a lot of coaches. So.
Yeah, I played a lot. And I really did want to give back. I actually didn't want to coach young girls. I wanted to coach a women's team, but I was living in Ashland, Oregon at the time, and they didn't have any women's teams. And they're like, please coach these 8-year-olds. I'm like, what? 8-year-olds? No. But you know what? Coaching those girls for 4 years was actually one of the highlights of my life. I had no idea that was coming. They were incredible. It was really fun. I got more out of it than I think they did. I mean, really, it was something to give back like that. So I'm appreciative of that.
No, that's awesome. Help me understand a little bit, because I feel like when I've talked to people that had played in the 80s and those first few years, so I wouldn't say they undersell, and certainly you haven't done that, but I do think there is this kind of level of humility that is very common for the era. Whereas I feel like if I were to talk to, on the men's side, I was an All-American, like in some senses, like, hey, you're All-American, that's a huge accomplishment. But help me understand a little bit of players that came out of this era, because it just seems like across the board, everyone is very humble about their accomplishments. That they don't shy away from it necessarily, but they're not. I assume when you meet someone, you don't say, hey, first team All-American, like you don't always bring that up. So help me understand a little bit where that humility really comes from.
Well, again, we didn't have social media to boast about ourselves. We weren't like, hey, look I just had a shutout, and played blah, blah, blah. And now we're going to Europe for Women's World Cup, you know what I mean? So we didn't have any place to really boast about ourselves.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of carried on like, this is the game. We love the game. I love the game. I still love the game. I still like head balls in my dreams. Like my body is still playing soccer in my mind. I wouldn't look so good on the field, but I think you just didn't have any place to boast it again, unless you were printed up in the newspaper, the local newspaper. I remember seeing myself in newspapers and thinking that was great. Oh my gosh, there's an article on me in the Honolulu Advertiser, that was it. And so you didn't really carry, I didn't anyway. It felt like it was in the moment, and you had those moments, and I won't forget them, but they weren't broadcast to the world on any kind of platform. So you just stayed in your present moment of being who you were, and you had a great game. That was it. It's over.
Yeah. It feels like with that, maybe appreciation is the word I'm looking for, but the appreciation for those moments is really hits a really high note, because you don't have the broadcast, you don't have something to share. So like for you in those moments, like you really hold on to those memories, you really appreciate it, where it feels like now any accomplishment is so shared, of like, hey, I did this. Everyone else gets kind of a part of it, of, there's engagement online, this is that, as opposed to, hey, this was my thing that I'm going to remember for me. It's almost like everyone's kind of taking a bit of a piece of the memory. And so, no, I can see that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned still playing in your dreams. When you watch the game now, I mean, when you think back to your time when you were playing, what are the big differences? You're like, wow, that never happened, or this used to happen a lot and it doesn't happen anymore. What stands out to you about the current game?
Oh my gosh, everything. It's the level of play is just it's so much more than it was. Kids now can go, you play your kid stuff, and then there's all the youth, programs. So you come up the ranks in these amazing youth programs. You get all that coaching. By the time you're playing as a young adult, college, and then after, you are prime. I mean, the game.
Yeah.
You know the game much better than you did, back when I played. People didn't really know the game that well. I loved the game, so I studied it. I felt like I understood the bigger picture. I think that's why part of my goalkeeping was good. I could see the game developing. You watch what's coming, you know. Now the level is so high. I watch these women play and I'm blown away by the talent because they've just had so much more of a higher level training all the way through their youth, high school, college, and out. You know, they've had just better opportunities to get better faster, younger.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way around.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the word you kind of said there that really stood out to me is opportunity, and I feel like that's the thing that I feel like at the end of the day, if people get an opportunity, like whether or not they have success with it or not, like is almost irrelevant. Did I have a chance to go do something? And that there is that fulfillment and excitement. And but when you don't have an opportunity, it always kind of feels like there's something kind of left on the table, or you don't feel like you get to tap into something. So there definitely is a lot of opportunity in a lot of areas, and especially compared to your time, which is I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I two final questions, and one is a little bit on a very micro level scale, and one is very macro. So we'll kind of go to each in spectrum. But I was trying to think of like, okay, we're going to go through a lot of history and kind of walk through this and that, and but trying to find a little bit more of a, I guess, different way to present really your time in these moments. So I guess the first question for you here is proudest on-field moment, and this can kind of extend really any, I guess my thought is anything inside the sport specifically where you're like, you know, hey, I'm always going to remember that I made that save, or I did this in this moment, or no one's ever going to take this moment away from me. When you think back to your playing career, what is like one of those, or you can say more than one, but what is one of those moments where you're like, yeah, I did that. Like that's something I'm going to remember forever.
Yeah, I would say it's the moment at Lewis and Clark when I tied the game up against U of O. You know, that I'm a goalkeeper, I'm making massive amount of saves, and then I have to go take the penalty kick and make it, no pressure.
Yeah.
You know, and tie a team that was, you know, 3 times better than us. And I remember that whole game. I remember like so many of the saves. I remember the weather. I just remember that whole day. It's really ingrained in my head. And I felt, I mean, I was really proud of that. That really hit me that I kind of was that game for our team. You know?
Yeah. No, I could see that. When I can't count how many times I've heard a goalkeeper say like, oh, I wish I could go take the penalty, but they're saying that in a sense of like what they're saying is, I wish I could be the one who scores a penalty, but to really be put into that spot where you have to go take it is obviously nerve-wracking. Not to mention the physical run you have to make to go over there. Like, you know, like you've been working and doing this, and now it's like, hey, go run 100 yards, kick the ball, and then run it back. You know, like there's a lot of pressure and exhaustion that goes into that moment. I've had a lot of goalkeepers say that they wish they could take it, but I know in the moment when it comes up, like they don't put their hand up. No one really is. There's very few people who get very excited to take a penalty.
Yeah, you know, yeah.
I could see that. Okay, well, to zoom out, and I think this would probably be a good spot to end. But obviously, you had a lot of ins and outs with the game, and you talked about reffing and coaching, and now you're a fan and you know, an alum. Like you have all these interactions with the game, but specifically with the position, when you look back on goalkeeping, I mean, what does goalkeeping mean to you? What do you take away from that time as that position?
Oh man. Well, I would say that, you know, a goalkeeper to me is it's a specialized position. You know, I think it's not that many people want to throw themselves around on the ground, at people's feet, in the air, get knocked around. And you have to, I think you have to be a pretty good athlete to be in that position. You have to be a really good athlete. It taught me a lot about leadership. You know, I felt like I was leading my team, defending my goal, you know, defending your honor back there. You have to be strong psychologically. You got to hold it together. You know, ball goes between your legs, they score on you, you're down. You got to stay strong. It helped me to develop that skill. And just also seeing the big picture as a goalkeeper. You're watching the play, you're watching it develop. All of those skills to me helped, transfer to my life in work, outside of soccer. Teamwork, absolute teamwork. And I loved all of it. And it was, what does it mean to me? It's like one of the biggest things I did, and one of the things I'm proudest of in my lifetime is that whole part of my life. And it'll always be a really great, memory to go back to and cherish.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fantastic answer. I'm always curious to hear any goalkeepers answer that, because even little Joe Smith, who played only rec soccer and was the goalkeeper for some reason, when you step into that spot and you really feel that weight, and your teams compete, your peers are competing, they're counting on you, it doesn't matter the level, like you're going to feel that stress. And so I think outside looking in, if you'll hear people say something like, "Oh, goalkeepers, you have to be a little crazy to play it," and that may or may not be true. I don't know, but I think if you've never done it, it's hard to really understand, like, oh, this actually translates in a lot of different directions outside the sport, outside the lines. Yeah. So no, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, Lori, thank you so much. I love this period, because part of like my efforts in trying to do a little bit more historical stuff, and trying to kind of dig up stuff. One thing I've really noticed is the thread of, okay, the position itself and really the time period as well have a nice parallel of, like, you had to figure it out. There wasn't a lot of coaching or information, or there was the internet, or video was tough to find. You had to figure it out in the position. You had to figure it out at the time. It's you had to find solutions. So that's been a nice thread to kind of continue to connect all these dots. And so thank you so much for telling me about your career and your story. It was just wonderful to hear.
Bill, I want to thank you too for digging up a woman, for one, and talking about history for the women's game, because there's probably more for the men's than for the women's. And I was tickled that you found me, that you reached out to me. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Oh my gosh. So thank you very much. I'm really grateful for this time, and I appreciate all the work you're doing just to kind of dig into goalkeeping.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I got to be honest, and you may be able to answer this or speak on it. When I first found your name, it was spelled with a Z for cats. Yeah. And so of course I'm looking around, and I find some people, but then I stumbled on something with the S. I was like, wait a second, we don't even know how to spell her last name. Like, what? How does that even happen? Like, we should know the spelling. So I was thrilled to find you.
The story of my life. It's always spelled wrong.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, thank you so much, Lori. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
All right. Yeah. Take care.
Take care. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.